This could have come in handy last week's episode of The Last of Us. Then again, these arrows rattling around would make noise too. Oh well. Hey guys, this is Jackie. So I recently saw the second episode of the HBO series The Last of Us, based on the video game. And yeah, so basically, this episode kind of, really moves a lot of things forward. It's definitely having things move a lot quicker than whenever I played the game. You know, there was a lot more exploring and stuff like that, but, you know, I know this is a TV show and not a video game, but yeah. Anyway, so basically, a lot of the emphasis of this episode is on the infected and, you know, the cordyceps and all that, and kind of how they're a hive mind, and sound is, like with any kind of zombie adjacent sort of storyline, is sound is kind of, you know, what you try to avoid, and you only use your firearms as a last resort, or if you have like a bow and arrow like what I just showed, it could be a little bit quieter, except of course, showing from the video games how you carry your arrows and your bow, it's kind of causes the rattling, like I said. You know, like these will kind of rattle, and that'll cause noise to, you know, attract the infected, particularly the clickers, which are introduced into this episode. And I know I usually say that I try to I try to avoid spoilers, but I feel like there's some things I kind of have to mention. And if you played the game, and or if you've already watched this second episode here, you kind of know what happens. So anyway, a lot of this episode is more getting to know about Ellie, and kind of, you know, her deal is she's apparently, you know, immune to the cordyceps virus. She's got the bite, and all of this is shown in the video games as well. But it's like already kind of a scar, and it's not like she's not infected, you know. So they kind of show that, but I mean, they kind of showed that at the end of the first episode, but it was kind of like just a bit too rushed, and I feel like they should have tried kind of you know, maybe saving that and actually, you know, revealing it a little, how do I say it? I don't know, just a little more like to it than just, oh, by the way, she's bitten, and oh, well, actually she's not infected, even though the scanner thing said she's infected and all that. Basically, you know, that kind of gets a little bit rectified, and they do, before getting in back with Joel, Tess, and Ellie, there is this, it's kind of another sort of opening that, okay, it doesn't really have much to do with the story, but it explains the cordyceps and kind of what's been going on. It opens up in, I believe, Indonesia, Jakarta specifically. And there's this scientist who's been studying cordyceps for like pretty much her entire life. It's something that, you know, she's very much an expert on. She is brought in by some military guys to examine this. One of the first people to be infected with cordyceps. Now, at first, you know, following, you know, real life scientific logic, is, cordyceps, they can't survive in humans. And that's why, in real life, it's never been, you know, something that, that we could conceive could happen with humans. It's, you know, infected, insects and bugs and stuff like that. And it's, more like that. But when she sees that, oh, it's actually infected humans too, and knowing that there is no vaccine, that there is no way, there's no cure, and she basically says that, okay, what do we do about it? She says basically bomb this whole city, kill everyone so that the infection cannot spread. And, that's kind of, it's not even kind of, it's actually really ominous. It's like, oh, shit. Like, yeah, you just got to kill everybody. And then once that's over with, we get back with Joel and Ellie, and she kind of explains, you know, her, where she got bit, and kind of like, you know, like she thought that was the end, but then realized, okay, she wasn't becoming, you know, infected, like she wasn't, experiencing any sort of side effects, or not, or symptoms rather, sorry. But basically, it's kind of, building a little bit more on the character there. We do kind of see Tess be a little bit more on the, I guess, warmer side, where she's like, okay, maybe we can hear her out, and, maybe we can, if there's a chance that there could be a cure or a vaccine, or there could be a way to do this, then, maybe, let's give it a shot or whatever. And that's similar to the games. First, it's like Joel kind of doesn't really trust that. He's really very much against the whole thing with, having to smuggle Ellie to wherever, where the Fireflies are, the rebel force that's, trying to get rid of the military dictatorship, that they're controlling everything. And basically, he's just kind of, not really, with it, but, you know, and of course, what happened, and, again, I always keep bringing up, if you played the games, you know what happens. And if you watch the first episode, you know that Joel lost his daughter, Sarah, played by Nico Parker. And, the way they portrayed that, obviously it was very sad, and still just as powerful. And the performances were really great. And it was, obviously Joel's still kind of dealing with that. And, first he's just, it's not as warm of a relationship with Ellie. Like, it will take him a while to kind of warm up to her, and kind of really start caring about her almost as a daughter. That's kind of how the first game goes. It's like, first they kind of don't get along, and it's kind of like, but then, she kind of has a charm to her, and then he kind of, warms, like I said, warms up to her, and then they kind of develop a little bit more of a bond. And they do have a little bit of that in this episode, but it's kind of, he's still trying to not get attached. That's basically kind of what it kind of turns out to be, more or less. But anyway, yeah, there's quite a few things that are similar to the games. Mostly it's the landmarks, and it's, well, I don't know if you say landmarks, but it's the, it's, like the buildings, like the areas from the game that are kind of pretty much exact replicas. Like there's the buildings that are kind of tilted and they're covered in mold and whatnot. There's that, but there's some things that were kind of cut out that I wish there was little bit more exploration. There was, they do have like the museum from the game and the encounters with the clickers, which is a little different from the game, because again, you know, they're trying to do some things differently, and I understand that. Pardon me, and still feeling a little not so great. You know, still a little bit sick, but anyway, so I kind of liked how they changed some things, but there's some things I wish they explored a little bit more. Like you know, I kind of wish they showed a little more of the conflict with the other humans and not just make it so much about the infected. I mean, the infected are obviously a threat. You know, they're you know if you get bit, you get infected, and that's it. You know, there's no cure, there's no vaccine, and you're gonna become one of them, and you're gonna start, developing those spores and those, or I guess they're called tendrils or whatever in this thing. Well, they're basically still spore-like things, that kind of are out of their mouths like that, which is, I guess the concept of how the fungus infection spreads and all that. But yeah, and basically, we get to a point where, where it does, again, have, these um, sort of emotional kind of situations. And again, if you played the game, you kind of already know what's going to be leading to it. And just for a spoiler warning, there is a character death, and that is the character of Tess, who is the female companion partner to Joel. I mean, she kind of has, like, obviously they work together ish. I mean, she was kind of sort of in charge mostly, but they were very much more along the lines of being partners. And she, it turns out she got bit by one of the infected in the museum, and she's infected, and unfortunately, there's no time to sort out, like, okay, where does Ellie need to be taken, and as it said in the game, somewhere out west, not really anything specific. That's basically identical to what they said in the game. Ellie, just go somewhere west, and Tess is obviously, there's an urgency to her demeanor, because obviously, she's been infected, and there's that whole thing, unfortunately. And when they uh, enter, like, it's this, like, I forgot what it's called. It's kind of it's like the Capitol building or something, um, of the Boston QZ or whatever. It's like outside the Boston QZ. But anyway, that's basically pretty much identical to the the video game. There are some things that are kind of major differences, like there's like there's like supplies, there's oil barrels, and then there's, like, the dead Firefly soldiers. They guess one of them got infected, and they ended up killing each other or something like that. That's a little different from the game, from what I remember. They were actually, it turns out they weren't actually infected. I don't think. I think they were shot down and they were left dead there. But the original plan was that Joel and Tess would take Ellie over to the Fireflies there, and they would kind of just take them off their hands, and Joel and Tess would kind of just go about their business as usual after getting the stuff from that was promised by Marlene. You know, the guns, the car battery, the stuff like that. The car battery is not actually from the games. That's something that's been kind of switched from the video games, kind of a deviation. And before Tess has like a, which I feel to be a little bit more of a heroic kind of sacrifice, other than just being gunned down by the federal agents or the military guys, you know, the ones that are controlling everything and watching over everybody and all that. They instead of that, there's a bunch of infected that have now been attracted to that area because one of the fireflies that was infected was getting ready to jump one of the companions, and Joel ended up shooting him dead, and you know that attracted, you know, the rest of the infected that were all kind of gathered in this other area. So that's a bit different. She actually Tess, she actually, you know, takes the barrels and spills it all over, and there's like also grenades and other explosives, and basically tells Joel to take Ellie and, you know, get out of here. And she actually mentions something about Bill and Frank. Bill is one of the characters that we in the video games that is well, he's kind of got a little bit of a complicated backstory a little bit. I mean, he and Joel and Tess, they kind of know each other. They kind of sort of go way back, but that was like kind of a long story. But Bill basically in the game lives in this completely deserted town that has clickers and other infected, and but he has like traps set up, and that's also the level where we find the bow. So I'm thinking that maybe this third episode coming up, you know, we might have something like that where I'm thinking Bill actually might give Joel the bow instead of Joel we just find it like in the games. But you know, that's for, you know, talk about another time. But Tess, she basically, you know, she has her heroic sacrifice, and but kind of before she's able to do all that, there's, you know, obviously there's, as I said before, there was kind of a relationship with Joel and Tess, and, you know, she kind of talks more about how, you know, she had feelings for him, but he didn't really share those feelings exactly. It's kind of that sort of thing, but basically it's still like, you know, heartbreaking, and the performances are good, but there's a part that's like, you know, there's actually a few parts that I'm kind of iffy about, like when you know, Tess basically tells Joel to save who he can, and, you know, he basically just grabs Ellie and then just kind of bolts out of there. There's not really anything to settle with, and then Ellie's like you know, screaming like, no, let me go, and, you know, don't leave her behind, you know. But it's like Tess is infected, and she's pretty much dead anyways, but she is going to at least try to make sure that the infected don't get Joel and Ellie. So she, like I said, you know, she spilled the oil barrels, and there's grenades and other explosives, and whenever the infected burst into the building, she's, you know, Tess is trying to strike the lighter and get it to go so that she can drop it and have that explosion, to make sure that the infected are dead and they don't go after Joel and Ellie. Uh, but then before she's able to do that, there's like this other infected dude who's got like spores like all over his face. He's almost like a clicker or a stalker. There's a lot of different variations of the cordyceps infected. Um, Basically, he goes slowly walks up to Tess and like kisses her, kind of, and he has like the spores and whatever coming out, and I guess he's basically. I thought that was just kind of strange. Like, I know, like, okay, this is supposed to be horror, and they're trying to be a little, unnerving with that sort of thing. But I thought, okay, I don't know, that looked very rapey to me. Don't take that the wrong way. It looked like he was basically mouth raping her with his spores and stuff. That just didn't sit very well with me, and I thought it's kind of it felt quite unnecessary. But she does eventually strike the lighter lit and drops it and blows all herself along with all the infected. So there's still that heroic sacrifice there, and that's pretty much how the episode ends. And so overall, the first two episodes I like. I think the second episode was pretty good. I still wish there was a little bit more exploration with some of the other video game areas, but I understand that there's some things that kind of have to be left out, and they kind of want to do some things a little bit differently, but at the same time being faithful to the core story. And I feel like they do respect the source material enough, so it's they're kind of being their own thing, but they're also paying respect to um, what the video game that's beloved by a lot of video game players, such as myself. Um, but yeah, I thought this episode was pretty good. I wish we would have spent a little bit more time with Tess, kind of like with the games. I think there was a little bit more, at least the way I played it. There was a lot more of character development, a lot more things to go through. But overall, I think the second episode of this show was still pretty good, just like the first one. So I'm kind of excited to continue. I like I said, kind of in the middle of talking about Tess and the heroic sacrifice and all that, is Joel and Ellie are probably going to go over to where Bill is. Frank is, well, he's basically Joel's, he's Bill's kind of partner. Joel and Bill, they have kind of a history, and in the show they kind of make, in this episode specifically, they talk about going to Bill instead of going to Tommy's, because there's like a whole other, again, there's a lot of deviations, a lot of things are formed a little differently in the show. But anyway, I'm thinking that Bill will probably give Joel the bow to have as a silent weapon, instead of just Joel finding it like in the video game. Because again, there's the whole thing with subverting expectations and kind of trying to be different. But yeah, well, like I said, it's pretty good. I still think so far it's a very strong adaptation going forward. But yeah, those are kind of my thoughts. Anyway, um, hope you guys. If you guys have your opinions on the show, please leave them in the comments. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all later.